It was a long tax season filled with fraud, the IRS even ignoring most of the calls that came from consumers, right? So now Republicans are demanding change. What are they saying? Well, the House Ways and Means Oversight Subcommittee releasing a report tomorrow morning debunking the IRS's claim that it doesn't have enough money to provide taxpayer service. Joining me now, the man leading the charge, Subcommittee Congressman Peter Roskam of Illinois. Congressman Roskam, thanks for joining us on the show. Appreciate your time. You had a laundry list of bills moving through the House to try to rein in the IRS. Why does it need such oversight?
It needs a lot of oversight because over the years, the IRS has been acting with impunity. It's been acting as if nobody was looking, from the targeting scandal to wasting resources, which is why last week there was a bipartisan group that came together and overwhelmingly passed these bills demanding changes and reform. In fact, there were no voices that were raised in opposition to these bills, and it's our hope and our expectation that the United States Senate will take them up and seriously consider them.
Let me tell you, a lot of these things go on, and they've happened before. They're simply getting worse. One of the ones that concerns me most is taxpayers, people who are trying to comply with the law, having their identities stolen. What can Congress do about this? The IRS just doesn't seem to be stepping up.
They've been very cavalier about it. So one of the proposals was offered by Congressman Kenny Marchant from Dallas, Texas. Congressman Marchant said it has to be a requirement under the law that confidential taxpayer information cannot be sent to a personal email of an IRS employee, for example. Or Congressman Jim Renacci from Ohio, who said if you are targeting based on political philosophy or some other criterion that ought not to be used, that's a firing offense. We also moved through a taxpayer bill of rights to make sure that it's the commissioner's responsibility at the Internal Revenue Service to make sure that substantive rights are defended and articulated and enforced at the Internal Revenue Service. But it's cumulative. There's a great deal of work that needs to be done.
Congressman, I have to tell you, if we need a taxpayer bill of rights for the IRS just to do its job the way it should, that just doesn't seem right to me. It seems like they should have their feet held to the fire for the responsibilities that they have right now. How do we get that done?
Well, I think one of the ways you get that done is by moving bipartisan bills through the House of Representatives, which, as you know, in a House that is deeply divided, for Republicans and Democrats to come together and tell the Internal Revenue Service there's nobody that is defending what you've done in the past, particularly as it relates to targeting, there is a great deal of effort. The other thing is we see it in the conflict as it relates to the budget and the appropriations process. The IRS is arguing we don't have enough money to do our jobs. Tomorrow in the hearing of the Oversight Subcommittee, we're going to demonstrate unambiguously that they absolutely have enough money to do their jobs. They just need to spend the money wisely.
Well, that's going to be interesting because the guy who runs the IRS, John Koskinen, has been very pointed in his comments about the fact that it's all about the Benjamins. We just don't have enough money. What do you want to hear him say? What are you going to ask him tomorrow?
Well, we're going to point out a number of areas where the commissioner, we think the IRS ought to be able to improve. So, for example, why in the world was the IRS paying $60 million in bonuses to people in a sequestration situation? It makes no sense. Or why does the IRS use hundreds of thousands of man-hours, literally 500,000 man-hours, for taxpayer-subsidized activity as it relates to union activity? There's a whole host of these things that we're going to go through, and just to create the sense of clarity that Congress appropriated the money that the IRS needs to do the job, but it didn't appropriate money for lavish trips and conferences that are ridiculous. And we have a high expectation that the IRS is going to use the money wisely.
Well, that's certainly something they've done in the past. The conferences, lavish conferences. Congressman Roskam, thanks for coming on the show. I hope we get to talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Jerry.